And welcome everybody into the Hunt Nebraska cabin. It is the week for our November firearm season here for deer in the state of Nebraska. We appreciate you joining us today. We've got a whole bunch of things we're going to cover, but one of the biggest things we want to do is make sure that if you have a question, we get an answer for that. And I want to say, before we introduce each of us, I want to just say a big thank you to the folks that are making this possible, which are the hunters and recreational shooters here in the great state of Nebraska, who help fund conservation and our wildlife management. So thank you. And again, if this is your first time, you got questions, make sure you get those asked down in the chat there, because if you're thinking about it, there's probably some others that want to know that answer as well. Or if you've been doing this for several years, several decades maybe you've got a question about the upcoming season, since it's just basically a couple days away, hours away, really, gentlemen. But first, I'm going to introduce who we have here. We'll start there on my right, your left, probably. Mr. Duane Art from Law Enforcement. How you doing, Duane?
Doing good, Hershberger.
Are you excited about this? I know you've been in the deer woods already some.
I have, and yeah, you always look forward to that opener rifle season. It's, you know, there's a lot of people out there and lots of things going on. So yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, and the man in the middle, you've probably seen him from both radio show and heard him on TV. The Jeff Rawlinson from our communications division. How you doing today, Jeff?
I'm doing just sublimely wonderful.
And you can see, folks, he is pounding out a deer hunting article as we speak. This guy is all jazzed up about deer. Have you been in the woods yet?
Not deer hunting, no. I've been in the woods, but not deer hunting.
Though I've got to say, folks, if you look at his calendar for several days, almost the entire 9-day season, it just says sick. What's that all about?
It's exercising my need to explore how one might utilize their sick leave, since I've not used any. I just kind of want to see how that works.
You're going to test it out, huh?
Yeah. So, but it's funny how it goes in 9-day spurts. Right?
9 days. Oh, there you go. There you go. Oh, that's fun. Folks, our whole goal today is to make sure everyone knows the answers to some questions they might have. We'll answer some of the common ones that we hear quite a bit, because the three of us get telephone calls, as well as several other folks across the agency, about deer hunting, this, that, the other thing. But there are some that pop up, frequently asked questions, I would say. And that we're going to jump right into. We got all this orange here on the table, Jeff. Why don't we jump into that real fast?
Absolutely.
And kind of talk about the purpose and what is required when we're hunting deer with a firearm.
Well, and that's a great place to start, Hershey, because the two things that probably had the greatest impact on reducing hunting incidents in the state of Nebraska, and that is across the country. Back in the 70s, most states implemented hunter education and implemented blaze orange requirements. Nebraska is no exception. Our blaze orange requirement to this day is still hunting big game with a firearm. You have to wear 400 square inches of blaze orange visible on your head and torso, front and back. And that's an easy one to follow, but I'm going to give you one little life tip here. Start life tip number one, and that is, sometimes we get these warmer deer seasons, Duane. I know you've seen a few of those in your day as well. Where the highs might be upper 60s, 70s, whatever. And everybody goes out and buys those heavy blaze orange stocking caps, because that's what we think of in deer season. And by about 10 o'clock, you're just sweating in that thing, and so they take that stocking cap off, and you guys are in the field going, hey, wait a minute now, you're not meeting the requirements. And so make sure you also have a ball cap. Make sure you have a blaze orange ball cap and then a blaze orange stocking cap. Keep those ears warm in the morning, and have that blaze orange on midday when things heat up.
Now, we oftentimes get questions about the blaze orange camo that you've seen. It kind of ebbs and flows as far as popularity. That allowed?
Yeah, as long as you have the 400 square inches of blaze orange on your person, and that's generally met with a vest and a hat, that's allowed.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, most of those manufactured garments are good.
One of the things that I often see now, and even my own collection, we've got these nice orange hats and vests here. Over time, they don't stay as bright as they once were when we bought them. So it's probably not a bad idea to take a peek at your orange, make sure it's going to be visible. That's for your safety out there, as well as letting other folks know that you're in the area. The brighter, the better. So, all right, that's a good one. I also want to hit on, Duane, the deer check stations, kind of right out of the gate, because this is the time of year we check all of our deer. Not only, folks, you need to cancel your tag upon successful harvest by punching out the date and the sex, as well as whitetail or mule deer, but we also check them in. Now, it's a little bit different during the 9-day firearm season. How so?
Well, you have to physically take your deer to a check station. There is movement to changing that maybe next year, but right now you have to take it to a listed check station and get it physically checked in, where they get your seal number for you and after your successful harvest.
Which is kind of a fun spot to be, because one, you're happy you're there. You were successful, right?
Yep.
Get that cool metal seal on that deer. And I noticed that sometimes, I've worked a few of those, both out in the sand hills and in eastern Nebraska. Folks kind of like to hang out there a little bit longer than just checking their deer. They're kind of interested in seeing what else rolls into the check station.
You can definitely get into some deer stories there, yeah, and hunt stories and those type of things. So yeah, it's pretty popular actually.
So that's a good thing, and make sure you plan for that, folks. We've got our list online under our outdoornebraska.gov deer hunting page. You can find the regulations there, along with a list of all the deer check stations, and a good thing to plan ahead, because they change a little bit from year to year. There are some tried and true that have been pretty faithful and loyal to the process for many, many years, but we get some changes here and there, so you want to make sure, especially if you're going on a trip, you know where that deer check station is, and maybe you can check that deer on the way out of the field, or maybe just a quick side trip on the way home out there as well. Jeff, you mentioned warmth, and just looking at the forecast for this weekend, I know at least in part of the state we are looking at some 60s for highs. Now, the nice thing is we're kind of starting off a little chilly, right around freezing or slightly below in some areas. So let's get a little strategy. Does that change what you do when you go out on opening day at all?
You know, it really can. Of course, when it comes to the heat, of course I'm dressing for it, right? Layers are the king, so that you can dress down, dress up based on whatever the weather conditions are going to be. But absolutely, warmer temperatures, my experience has been you see a lot more deer movement, early morning, and then late evening, you start to see some deer movement. Keep in mind that this time of year it's going to cool off fast, and so even if it's about 68, 70 degrees midday, by the time you start getting 4:30, 5 o'clock, it starts to cool down fast, and deer start to move again. When I focus my midday hunting, when it's this kind of warmth out, I'm focusing down. I'm getting back in the timber, getting back in the shaded areas. I don't worry as much about water. In most areas, there's plenty of water available to where I'm not guarding a water hole or something. But I do like to get back in those darker, shadier, timbered areas where deer can get some breeze, maybe still, but they also are protected from the sun. When it gets cloudy out, you get those overcast type days. I don't care how warm it's gotten, overcast days, deer can be moving all day long in those days. And as we get later in the season, the temperatures are supposed to drop again later this season, and deer movement I think will pick up quite a bit. There
you go, Duane. You got any secret opening day strategies that you can spill this year?
Well, I certainly agree with what Jeff said, but my philosophy is if you've got the time, get out there. Whether it's two, you're not going to kill one sitting on the couch or whatever. So if you've got the time and the ability to get out there, get out there. Whether it's warm or windy or cold or whatever. Get out there if you can. Yeah.
This is the rut.
And that's just
this is the main show. I mean, the curtain call, this is the main show, folks.
And the season's opened, and there's a lot of people in the field, and they're pushing deer around, and the rut moves deer. Anyway, the bucks move the does, and the bucks are moving to find the does.
So we'll talk about that here just a little bit more. But again, folks, if you're watching us, thanks for joining us over your lunch hour, or maybe you're listening to us as you're driving out to the field. If you got some questions, make sure you type them up there in the chat. We'll get to as many of those as we possibly can, because again, our goal is to get questions answered today. We're just days away, hours away, really. It's going to go by pretty fast here in just a bit. The rut. I mean, that's one thing here in Nebraska is kind of unique in some cases compared to a few of our neighbors. We are able to hunt the deer with the firearm during that rut season, which definitely kind of changes things around, right? I mean, a deer, for the most part, its life is, centers around food, water, staying warm, staying safe from predators and things of that nature. And then all of a sudden that rut gets tossed in there, and now carrying on the species is a pretty big deal, and they can, sometimes food isn't as important now for those bucks, and moving across, finding those available does out there. That just adds a whole bunch of excitement, especially early on in the season.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is the time we live for, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, this is the primo time to be out, as far as, Nebraska's rut and the movement of the deer. Yeah, absolutely.
And you got to keep in mind, you got to remember what's going on biologically. I mean, these deer, normal looking critters, and all through July, August, September, even early October, as that day length decreases and the testosterone increases, these bucks become supercharged machines. I mean, their neck muscles grow to about twice the normal diameter, chest muscle, arm. I mean, they just beef up, and their attitude changes, right? They now enter out into a field and they see another buck, they can kill each other. I mean, it gets that aggressive. And so this is the time of year they are just throwing caution to the wind, looking for does, looking for fights, and this is the time you just got to be out there, right place, right time.
So you guys kind of both mentioned being out there. The longer you're out there, the better, because these deer are going to be on their feet sometimes when we don't think of deer being very active. That can change real fast. It only takes one or two deer to really get the adrenaline flowing and change your season. That said, do you ever use any of that running behavior to your advantage in helping either draw a deer or get them to investigate what's going on a little closer to you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the scrape lines that those bucks are running and tending, and some of the manufactured
the doe
urine or whatever, certainly can be an attractant. Jeff had the perfect. They just throw caution to the wind, and that's really true when you got a mature buck that's out there, looking for a doe. They do seem to just throw caution to the wind. They're just not near as sneaky.
No, that's kind of nice though, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tilts. I don't ever think that when you talk about deer hunting that the scales completely tip in favor of the hunter. I mean, these deer are out there. Their whole job in life is avoiding danger and staying alive. And the ones that we oftentimes lose sleep over with those antlers that grow and have grown for, their 4 or 5 year old deer. I mean, they know how to stay safe. They've already gone through this a time or two, which is kind of the fun thing. But it never hurts to see deer when you're out there deer hunting as well. Jeff, I know, and this is kind of a softball question for you here. I know you are a big fan of using some of that rut activity to your advantage.
Oh, I do. This is rattling time of year, no question about it. Bring the antlers.
Rattling Rawlinson, that's what we call them.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, and I'll tell you, this time of year, I don't leave home without my rattling antlers. I won't go without my. I mean, it's kind of weird when I go to church and stuff, but other than that, I don't go anywhere without my rattling antlers because it's any time of day they can work. Now, my experience has always been early morning. The first hour of morning has always been killer for me when it comes to rattling. But it's amazing the number of deer I've seen or brought into bow range or brought into pistol range or whatever by clacking antlers together versus just sitting in the deer stand. Doesn't work all the time, but how often does greatness have to strike in order for you to go, oh, there's something here, right? Yep. And when it does work, you're like, darn right, I feel pretty good, right? Kind of cool. And so rattling and grunting are two of my favorite tactics.
Now, you mentioned grunting right there. You don't leave home without the rattling antlers. Grunt tube, you guys always have that with you when you're out deer hunting?
Yep, I got it right. Yep, I have it strung right around my neck. I just used it this last weekend and had a great response from a little buck that come walking right in. He's walking away from me and, kind of gave him a little song and dance on the grunt tube and he turned right around and come right to me. So.
Which is kind of cool because it's one of those things, folks. A lot of times we're waiting for those deer to move around and get to where we can see them. When you add the grunt to, when you do the rattling, or even add a little scent to the equation, sometimes that gets them up on their feet, and you feel like you might be just a little bit more part of the whole process rather than lucking into it. But I don't mind sitting there on the old 5-gallon bucket and just enjoying those cool November breezes and letting the rut bring them in either. So. That's pretty cool. Definitely some strategy to it. Wind. Talking about scent, I know scent control as a whole has definitely taken off, and we've got sprays to kill odor. We've got different, like you said, doe estrus and buck scents and all that to try to make them territorial and all of that. Do you ever find yourself hunting with the wind at your back, though? Do you ever do that, or are you always nose to the wind?
Well, I would tell you, and I referenced this earlier, if you got an opportunity to get out, because you really never know where a deer is going to come from. And again, if you hunt in an elevated stand or off the ground and in a blind or something along those lines, it's certainly something to be aware of. And we said caution to the wind. They still see and smell extremely well. So yeah, the wind can absolutely ruin it if they're coming in from the wrong direction. But you just never know where they're going to come in from, as far as that goes too.
No, good stuff. We humans often say seeing is believing. And to a deer, I do believe it's smelling is believing. They trust that nose more than anything else. That way, sometimes when you're walking in, they see you, but they can't smell you. They snort and wheeze, and they stomp the foot trying to get you to kind of give away exactly what you are to confirm what they're seeing. But once they smell you and they see that as danger, that's something else.
Yeah, they're gone.
That's the truth. Let's get into a little bit of the regulations now. I know both of you guys archery hunt, muzzleloader hunt, rifle hunt some. Whatever the season might be, you guys have experience with it. We do get questions from time to time about what makes a good deer rifle. I'm just getting into it, and what should I keep in mind? And it's almost so many different calibers and guns out there nowadays. It can be a little bit confusing. But let's start with the very first thing. By regulation, that gun has to be so large and have so much power. Let's start there. Duane, you want to kind of tell us what that is?
By law, the gun has to deliver 900 foot-pounds of energy at 100 yards, and and all the way down to basically a 223 is going to, most ammunition at that or above that is going to meet that requirement. When you start talking caliber, it can range from it can range from a small 22 caliber rifle, not 22 long rifle, but a small caliber rifle, all the way up to 7mm mags, and what the preference of the hunter is actually. And again, talking about deer here, some guys like to shoot a long ways, and the Creedmoors got real popular, and so I tell you, personal preference and what you have available. It really ranges from people's perspective on what works for them.
Jeff, when you get that question, I know you've got it quite a bit. Is there a go-to cartridge or type of rifle that you say this is it?
Harvesting a deer with a rifle is so much about being able to shoot that rifle well and place that bullet in the boiler room every time, no matter what the conditions, what the terrain, what your condition is, distance, whatever. So, the bottom line criteria is whatever rifle you can shoot well that meets our criteria is the best rifle. Now, that being said, it's apples and oranges, it's trucks, it's Fords versus Chevys. Is it a bolt action or a lever action or a semi-auto or a pump? Doesn't matter. That's up to you. Whatever you're comfortable with. What is important is having something, like I said, you can shoot well. But I think good deer cartridges for Nebraska really start at the 243 Winchester and then go up from there. Is there too much of a good thing? Yeah, I think the Magnum craze about in the 70s and 80s is in somewhat of the 90s, is waned a little bit. People buying cartridges that they were just too big for them, that they just didn't shoot them well. It doesn't take a sledgehammer to bring down a whitetail or a mule deer, but on the same token, it does take, you know, a significant amount of power, and most of these cartridges have that. 243 Winchester is fine to start with. I think some of the absolute one of the best all-time deer cartridges start in the old 30-06 family, 270, 280, 30-06. The 308 Winchester is king, I think, in Nebraska. Any of the 7mm, whether it's a Mauser or a Magnum, are king. You know, the funny thing is that if you have any one of those, you know, moderate to mid-range deer cartridges, deer's never going to know what it was shot with. The only person who's going to worry about that is the hunter. Right. The deer's never going to understand that. And then picking a good bullet. Now, most manufacturers today, they do a great job of marketing those products, and so it has a picture of a deer on it, and it's your cartridge. It's probably going to be a good deer cartridge. But I'm still a big believer in soft points. I like bonded core bullets because there's less fragmentation out of the bullet, which is something we would really rather not see on deer, is having that you know, lead bullet fragment within the deer. And then just about, you know, any of the non-lead type bullets, the all copper bullets, you got to shoot, you know, what shoots well in your rifle, and not all of those do, but any of those will work just fine on deer usually as well.
All right, we're getting some questions now. Again, folks, if you've got a question, make sure you type it up in chat, and we'll do our best to get to as many as we possibly can and get you the right answer. But before we go to a couple of these, this is kind of out of curiosity. So you've got the rifle. You've got, a lot of us like to put telescopic sights, or what we lovingly call scopes. And then we've got the ammunition. So I'm going to ask you, our budgets are only so much, and I know there's probably a couple of people that are thinking, boy, maybe I should get a different deer rifle for Saturday, or maybe after this year I want to buy a new one. Price points. Where is it best to maximize your money, your budget on which item? You're going to spend more on the rifle, a little bit less on the scope. Ammo is what it is. You're going to spend more on the ammo. What's your suggestion?
I have opinions.
Well, there you go.
That's somewhat of a tough question. I think it really depends. I mean, I see guys that, you know, have, you know, the real high-end hunting gear, and maybe, you know, not a rifle to match you know, what they got, but
I'll be honest with you. I'm a firm believer the scope is where it's at, and I think if you spend more money on a scope than a rifle, you'll be doing great. Not everybody can. Most people buy a rifle and then put, you know, maybe $150 to $200 scope on it. That's fine. Those will work forever. However, the difference between a $150 scope and a $450 scope is incredible. You can say the same thing for rifles. The difference between a $500 rifle and a $750 rifle, by some standards, might be incredible. I don't think so. You know, one of the most accurate rifles out of the box that I think, you know, action-wise that ever came to be was the Savage 110 bolt-action rifle, still in existence. It has that Savage IQ trigger or whatever, and it's just an incredibly accurate rifle. And you put a $500 scope on something like that, and you've got a rig that'll stand the test of time. But so some of that's preference, but good scopes will put deer in the bag. Any rifle, any decent rifle will put deer in the bag, but good scopes will help put deer in the bag.
There you go.
I agree with that.
I'm going to say you can get a hold of these two after this, and they'll probably even give you some more insight if you're actually looking for a rifle. All right, going to jump into some of the questions. We got one from Nick. Can deer be found on the open prairies on the Ogallala grasslands, or is that just not deer habitat? Now, this is kind of a fun thing. Here in Nebraska, well, we got two different types of deer, and they do kind of have different habitat preferences, mule deer and white-tailed deer. So who's our grasslands expert here? Probably a guy that went to school and learned a little bit about horticulture and the plains and the sand hills of Nebraska. Can you find deer on the open prairies?
Absolutely. I mean, that is, you know, king habitat for mule deer in the great state of Nebraska. And you'll see those grasslands, flat grasslands, rolling hills, sand hills. and think, well, there's just no trees, there's no place for them to bed. They're bedding on the backside of a hill, they're bedding in a gully, they're bedding in something that you can't even see until you walk up on it and go, oh, there's some opportunities here. So that is where mule deer pretty much reign supreme. They're away from the white-tailed deer, which mule deer prefer habitat and prefer to be away from whitetails, and so that's absolutely some beautiful deer harvested in that grassland that he refers to.
Spent much time out in the sand hills chasing deer, Duane?
I really haven't. I mean, I've certainly spent time out there, but I haven't hunted a lot out there. But yeah, I would absolutely agree that, yeah, that's a very, very popular spot for hunters to go out to harvest mule deer.
I think it's always interesting talking to our biologists out west, how they get folks either from the eastern part of Nebraska or non-residents traveling out, and they just look at that landscape, and the first question they all have is, where are the deer? Yeah. And they go out and they look and look, and they're looking in spots where they think of whitetails being near trees down in creeks, and you can find them there. But they're all shocked, they say, at night when they're driving back to camp or to the hotel or what have you, and they see all these deer just kind of moving around. It's like they materialize. They know how to survive out there in the little ripples and terrain changes out there. So you bet. You talk about a fun, challenging hunt, especially for spot and stock, would be the open grassland prairies out there. So, all right, here's a tough one from Dylan. And this is a two-parter, all right, Duane, we're gonna start with you, and then Jeff will give you that question as well, and then we'll go to the second one. All right, the second question, which might be even tougher. What is your favorite part of the hunt?
You know, it's just it's soaking in everything. You know, watching the raccoons come down the trail and climb up the tree, and the geese flying overhead, and the deer, and listen, you know, pulling the string on the bow or the trigger on the gun, you know, that's that 1 second of enjoyment. But yeah, it's just sitting out there and taking it all in and hoping for that 1 second of opportunity out there.
That's right. And looking for that adrenaline rush
Yep,
when everything,
yep.
boy, but it's fun.
But that 1
Leading up to
second
it.
pulling the trigger doesn't suck, does it?
No, it doesn't. It's that, you know, seeing them come and coming, you know, that's definitely enjoyable.
All right, Jeff, same question. What's your
You know,
favorite part of the
it's
hunt?
hard to disagree with what Duane just said. You know, there's so many facets to the hunt, right? If we can say the hunt is the prep, the going hunting, the being on stand and seeing nature and all that stuff, the moment of the shot, and all the way back to the campfire at night and you know, having a cigar with buddies and all that. If all that's part of the hunt, I gotta tell you, I look forward to the campfire at night. You know, we do a lot of camping trips when we go hunting, and for deer hunting is no exception. And I gotta say, sitting around the campfire at night talking about what everybody saw and what you didn't see, and you know, is a lot of fun. But you know, I'd say it's tied between that and just being out there, enjoying nature, seeing the world wake up, watching critters walk by, like Duane said. You know, live for that, right? I mean, you gotta have that. So it's
Definitely.
tough.
And you guys are both right. I tossed out there the anticipation, you know, of what's going to happen, all that, the potential out there. Retailers love that too, because that's when they get to sell a lot of extra gear on that anticipation for the hunt. And then a close second, the snacks. You got to have some snacks while you're out there. There's a lot of food surrounding that. Which brings us to the second question that Dylan was asking. Jeff, we'll start with you, Duane, so you have a chance to kind of formulate an answer to this one. The second part is, what is your favorite part of the deer to eat?
Well, that to me is easy. I mean, I like the tenderloins. There's no question about that. And I like to soak them overnight in bourbon and brown sugar. And some of the higher end, like Buffalo Trace, and some of those are sweeter bourbons, and they do a real good job. And then flash grill them to a medium rare. If you take it 1 second past a medium rare, I'm going to be in a bad mood. But medium rare, flash grilled after that, little salt and pepper to taste, and I am telling you, it'll change the way you view life.
There you go. Duane?
Totally agree. That's a pretty no-brainer there. Yeah. It's going to be the tenderloin and however you marinate it or grill it. But
kind of like picking your favorite type of bacon, right? I mean, you're not going to turn any of it down, but you're definitely gonna look at it differently when it gets to those straps. So
Steak
all
bacon. I like that thick cut steak bacon.
steak bacon.
Steak bacon.
All right, here's a good one. All right, and Duane, I'm going to focus this towards you. From Alexander. If you see a deer that is exhibiting signs of CWD, chronic wasting disease, or injury, what is the best course of action? Reporting it or burning your tag? So if you see you're out there hunting, you see a deer, it's showing some signs that something's not right.
Yeah, listen, I would tell you, let Mother Nature take its course. I wouldn't tell you to burn your tag and if you harvest a deer that you're thinking is sick and it actually isn't sick, you have canceled your tag and you're already going to be telling yourself, should have I have done that? So I would tell you, let Mother Nature take its course. And, Mother Nature is the best caregiver out there, but she can also be the cruelest. And so no, I wouldn't suggest burning your tag to take an animal in that situation.
That's right. It's one of those things that might not have a great chance in all cases of survival, but if you shoot it, the chances are zero.
Yep.
Right there. And I worked in a spot, folks. We had a tripod deer, one that accidentally got hit on the highway, lost a leg, and lived for the next 12 years. On just really well on 3 legs. So good question. All right, Jeff. You are known as the check ninja in our office. Michael asks, what tips do you have for getting in and out of your stand without spooking deer?
That's a great question, because I really believe you can burn a morning by not getting in your stand properly and making a lot of noise. And that to me, it goes with scouting, right? So, sometimes we don't even set stands in areas where we can't get in and out of them without spooking deer, because it's kind of a futile effort. But from there, it's a matter of saying, okay, knowing where deer are coming from. And sometimes I've even gone as far as to get permission from opposite landowners to access my stand. I'm not going to hunt their lands, but I want to crawl through their property to get to my stand so I'm not spooking deer. Because honestly, walking through a feeding area in the dark in the morning when deer might be out on a cornfield isn't smart. And walking through a bedding area when deer, in the afternoon when deer are in that bedding area hoping for an evening hunt doesn't make a lot of sense. I have on occasion gone out to areas and just little stretches of trail, if you will. I've raked the leaves out of that spot so that I could walk quietly the last 50 yards to my stand without making a ton of noise. Don't know if that did any good or not, but I think it really is your scouting, for me anyway, and then figuring out what is the best place to approach. And sometimes you might have to be willing to walk quite a bit further out of your way to get to your stand, and I've done that. So that you're not pushing deer or pressuring deer that you might take the path of least resistance and do so.
And I think all 3 of us, we all have bow hunted, and we go and we find out, especially early season, man, it's not easy getting into this favorite stand spot where we love to have a stand each and every year. And so we either take a machete or we kind of clear a path, and then all of a sudden we find out when we go back, a few weeks later, the raccoons are using that path.
The
deer are using that path.
The deer.
Yeah, and deer, especially deer.
And sometimes that can be a good thing, right? But other times, just like, no, it's going to walk right, and I never get a good broadside shot at them. So it's a good one. It's overlooked oftentimes, especially during that rifle season. We're in such a hurry to get to different spots.
And some of that is the clothing you're gonna wear, right? If you're trying to be quiet, there have been a few times where I just kind of change my clothing in general, but to be quiet type, but put on fleece to get to the stand, and then you might cover it up with something else if you want to, but just quiet clothing can make a world of difference. The right boots can make the world of difference, but I think that like you said, eliminating as much of the noise-making material in front of you is gonna go a long way.
There you go. All right, here's our next question from Bryce. And Bryce, if I don't capture what you're asking correctly, you can retype it on there. I'm going to read it as it's written right now, and then I'm going to try to make sure I understand the question. If I hunt on public land, do I harvest the deer there? I have seen videos where they leave it for coyotes. If I do it at home, where do I dispose? And I'm guessing that processing, field dressing. So let's start with that. If I harvest a deer on public ground, field dressing that deer, what do I do with the guts? Duane, we'll
Yes,
start, yeah. We'll go
yeah,
through.
you can just leave it there, and our law allows you to quarter the deer to carry, to get it out if you've got a,
That's right.
big carry. So yes, that part's absolutely going to be, it's going to be utilized by Mother Nature, and gratefully by a lot of other animals. So yeah, that's perfectly legal, and to leave the entrails there.
That's right, and folks, we're not talking about bringing it to the parking lot and then disposing of all that stuff there in the parking lot or in the ditch side of the road, anything like that. Bryce, if you're doing that at home, whether it's the field dressing or the skinning and the deboning after it's been to the check station, got the seal on it, our best suggestion and advice is to dispose of it like you would any other garbage or trash that you have. If I've got a freezer at home, that if I need to do it that way, it's going to be warm, I'll let it freeze in that deep chest freezer for a little bit before I put it in the garbage can before it gets picked up. But that's probably the best option out there if you're going to do that at home. So, Bryce, if I didn't get the crux of your question there, feel free to type that back in. So he's got another one. If I hunt public access on a landowner location, is it okay to climb a fence if no clear access is located? And I believe what Bryce is asking here is on our open fields and water, we've got our public access atlas books right down there. There's a lot of ground in there that's basically, private land that the Game and Parks has gone and secured foot access for hunting or trapping, and in some cases fishing as well, for hunters. And foot traffic only. If there's not a clear way in, a clear spot, like a field access where they can park and walk into, is it all right to climb the fence? I don't know that I've ever really been asked that one.
Well, if I understand the question correctly, can you park along the county road and climb over the fence in one of our open fields? Yes, I would tell you that. Yeah, we don't have parking lots on those areas, so you want to use some common sense there as far as don't be blocking traffic and get off to where you can. For other vehicle traffic going up and down the road. If that's kind of what his question is, then yeah, that'd be the way to do it.
Yep, and you folks can't see it, but behind the camera there's our hunter education coordinator, and he's making sure make sure anytime you cross the fence, whether it's on property, one of our wildlife management areas, private land you have permission for, whatever, make sure that gun is unloaded. And you remember what you were learned in hunter education for crossing those barriers. Talking about private land, this is one that I think that your officers probably respond to, especially during deer season, but throughout the hunting season, it might be towards the top of number one complaints by landowners is, trespassing. Mm-hmm. People that have not secured permission to access that ground. Walk us through what's required here in the state of Nebraska as far as hunting private land.
And you're right. You're right. It's historically been our number one complaint that we deal with, and it is commonly known as trespassing. But we basically there's laws out there that says hunt, fish, trap without permission. And with trespassing, there has to be a notice. There needs to be signs up, or someone has to tell you to get off the ground, and you don't. But with hunt, fish, trap without permission, it's just that simple. The landowner has not given you permission to be on his property, and those are the elements basically of that violation. So yes, you have to have permission and to get it from the landowner. We don't really care where you hunt as long as the landowner doesn't care, and as long if the landowner complains and you don't have permission, then he's right and you're wrong.
There you go. And also, one of the things we can probably hit on real briefly here is if there's a house right on the edge. All right, you've got permission to hunt this property, but there's a house that isn't too far away on the adjoining piece of property you don't have permission for. There's a distance that you have to be before you're allowed to hunt, even on that place that you have permission for, correct?
Yep, that's a great question. 200 yards if you're hunting with a rifle, 100 yards with shotgun or archery. And if you don't have permission from that dwelling, whether it's on different property or not, You cannot hunt within let's say rifle deer season. You cannot hunt within 200 yards of that dwelling. Now, if the guy gives you permission, then you can. But if you don't have permission from any adjoining property, dwellings, houses, 200 yards is the rule.
All right, there you go. Now this is one that I think that we can all weigh in on. We've been in the woods a little bit, and this is one that I think everybody is curious about. For those that are going out this weekend, that type of stuff. And, you know, from Matt, how is the deer population looking this year? From what you guys are seeing out there. I'll tell you my experiences here.
And so, you know, I always tell people, deer are going to be where you find them. But population overall, very healthy. But like, you know, maybe like even last year, you know, it's why I call it hunting. You're going to have to hunt to find deer, and there's plenty of deer to be found.
Duane, I know you usually do an annual trip with the guys to go deer hunting. What did it look like this year? Saw plenty of deer?
Well, I actually wasn't able to make our planned one because of an unfortunate death at a funeral that I had to go to, but a buddy of mine was up there, and they definitely saw the deer. They weren't really into that rut movement, but you know, if you're hunting along, you know, our premier habitat areas, any of our drainages, our river systems, which the Nebraska is completely crisscrossed with all the different river drainages and stuff like that. There's still lots and lots of deer in those premier habitats. I would agree with Jeff that our deer herd is extremely healthy. And it kind of depends where you are at, but I've been out in the stand some, and I can tell you, you know, on some of our trail cameras, you know, we've seen some of the best deer that you know we've seen for a while, and more of them. So yeah, there's a good population.
And I think it's something that firearm hunters probably fall into every once in a while, as we judge everything based on sitting on this 5-gallon bucket in the same spot in the same field year after year for day after day. They move. They definitely move. I've noticed that with archery hunting. I've got spots that I'm probably seeing a few more deer than I did last year, and other spots that they're just not using that. And exactly. It has to do with acorn. It's got to do with food. It's just got to do with the habitat. Getting some rains in the middle of summer that we didn't get last year. There's spots I can't see as far. And that changes the deer, how they use it. The terrain's the same, but the vegetation.
Well, and here's how spotty. That's a good point, Hershey, because here's how spotty it can be. You know, for a couple of years now, in one of the locations I hunt in southeast Nebraska, my brother-in-law on his property, we've hunted some of these lands and seen just tons of deer, right? And then of course after the EHD outbreak and was it 2011, 2012, those numbers we have not seen since then. And I was even, geez, we haven't seen a lot of deer on this. We only hunt 40 acres, right? It isn't like we're seeing the lay of the land. Right. And then to find out the harvest for that unit is doing really well. And it's like, now you could easily walk away going, oh, there's no deer here because my little 40-acre piece of the world, I'm not seeing deer where we might have seen 30 in a morning. And so you're exactly right. Your little view of the world may not match the reality of what's going on with the deer population. So it's always something to keep in mind.
There you go. Matt goes on to say he's going to try to get his 12-year-old his first deer. They're going to be hunting on some open fields and water, maybe some wildlife management areas that allow rifle hunting. So more power to you, Matt, and your kid. And we hope you have nothing but a safe and memorable hunting season this year. There's a lot of opportunities out there, and that access. A lot of deer roaming around on those spots, not just private land or wildlife management area. They're spread throughout, which is pretty darn good. Now here's a question. I'm not sure. I think Kim's setting this up on this one. We were talking about the check stations again during the 9-day firearm season, folks. You need to take that deer in to a physical check station where you'll get the seal and the official check-in of that deer. They might take some samples, or asked to take some samples of different lymph nodes and things, and might age it as well. Very important. You've got until 1 p.m. the Monday following the close of the November firearm season, and that 1 p.m. for those that might be listening to us in the Mountain Time Zone is Central, if I remember correctly, so it would be noon in Mountain. But Kim asked, how long does it typically take at the check stations in Scotts Bluff?
11 minutes, 22 seconds. Now,
There
that's
you go.
the average.
And if he's
it can
wrong,
be a little bit above and beyond.
if he's wrong, I'll buy you a Coke, Kim. No. And that's one of those things that having definitely
Got the Coke right here. If I'm wrong, here's
worked
the
some
Coke,
check
my
stations
darling.
in different locations, different areas. There's a few trends that I think you can notice, especially in western and some around some of those bigger towns like Scotts Bluff, North Platte, Ogallala, that type of stuff, Lincoln, Omaha, and this side, Grand Island, wherever. There's certain trends you can follow. One, it seems like those check stations get kind of busy right there at lunchtime when everybody's coming out of the field and they're going to check their harvest time. During the game time, if the Huskers are playing football during the daylight hours, a lot of times it's pretty slow.
Yeah.
It's pretty slow. And then it picks up again after dark when shooting hours are over. Folks are checking in the deer they've taken that day. Have you guys noticed any other trends as far as how the ebb and flow of the check station busyness moves throughout the day or season?
You know, Hershey, you said it. If I'm working that check station and the Huskers are playing and they're ahead, you probably won't get a lot of service from me until that game's over. But right after,
check time moves up
that's
a little
right.
bit then.
12.5 minutes now.
I won't wait for the coaches, after a game show. I'll check right after, but not during the game. It obviously depends on a lot of factors, but that's one of the things I'm always impressed by our check stations, because you can spend. I've seen guys go there and gals and hang out, like you said. Sometimes they serve biscuits and gravy at some of these. It's a big deal, and have breakfast and whatnot. And seen people hang out, and I've seen people they're in and out in 2 minutes. I mean, it doesn't take long to answer the questions and then have that seal put on the deer. So it's pretty efficient. But if you go there when there's a line of trucks waiting to get deer checked, then obviously it can take a little longer. Sometimes if I see that and I just don't want to wait in line, I go get gas and I might get something, lunch or something, and come back and the check station's died down and I can get in and out. Most of the time, I want to get in there and I want to see deer and I want to find out what everybody else is seeing. So I'm the more people, the merrier for me.
Yeah, no, I'd agree. Opening weekend, it's busy. Those first couple days, even though you can wait a little bit longer, most people like to get it checked in, very shortly after they have harvested it to get it to the locker plants or cut it up themselves.
There you go. All right, Duane. Randall's got a question that has to do with carrying sidearms. Can hunters carry a sidearm in the field while rifle hunting?
Yes, and you basically always have been, as long as you have a valid permit, and that's the key, that you have a valid deer permit.
There you go. That's that one, like you said, been an option for some time. So, folks, if you got some more, I think we got some time. Make sure you get your questions typed up there in the comments, even if it's one that you perhaps think you know the answer to, we can confirm that. But if you're thinking that there's some others that'll be watching this either now or later that might have that same answer or same question and want an answer to it as well. So that's lots of fun.
Well, I want to add to that real quick, because and Duane's absolutely right. But one other thing to keep in mind is if you don't have a valid permit, say you've already filled your permit, you can still carry a sidearm as long as it's a rimfire. It can't be a centerfire sidearm. True. And so just something to keep in mind there.
There you go. And along that same lines, we get that question. We had it just earlier this week, folks, when we did a Learn to Hunt in-person workshop. Are there other things I can hunt while I'm deer hunting?
With rifle, absolutely.
With rifle,
coyotes. You can hunt coyotes. Any of our fur bearers, you legally have to have a fur harvester's permit. But you could shoot. You could certainly shoot. Coyotes. Yep. And as long as you got your valid deer permit in the field with you, you're good to go.
And a few years ago, we allowed turkeys to be hunted during the November firearm season as well, but you're going to be using shotgun or bow and arrow in that case, since centerfire rifles are not a legal means of take, or any rifle in that case. So that's something to keep in mind as well. All right. Again, folks, give us a question there in the chat. We'll answer a few more. We're kind of winding down here. We've got probably just under 10 minutes on the clock. Going to be a fun weekend here as we start the 2023 November firearm deer season. I do know that last we checked, there are still some permits available, and if you haven't been onto our permit system, we've changed it. We've got a different vendor working on that now. One of the things that you might want to do is give yourself some time. If you haven't already been on there, you're going to want a little extra time. If you've already been there, you'll probably understand what I'm saying, because you've got to make sure your profile is set up. Everybody that's buying hunting permits, fishing permits, park permits online need to have a profile set up, and that doesn't matter age. We've got to have that. You can do them as friends and family still, but they have to have their own user profile. But it's going to take maybe a little extra time, a few extra minutes to go through that process and find stuff. We've got the same products for the most part. They're just on different shelves, perhaps, as we rearrange the online store there. But still a good number of permits I see out there. So,
there really are, and I think this is kind of an exciting week right now, because I think a lot of folks who traditionally have, said, well, if I haven't got my tag right by now, I'm not going to get one. I would highly encourage them to get back on the website and take a look. There's a good chance there's a permit still available in your unit, and I found that out here just recently on one of the units that I typically watch, and it hasn't sold out yet. And by this time, I think by this time yesterday, it normally is. And so not a lot of permits available still, but they're still out there, so you might be able to grab one. But I couldn't agree with you more. New system in place. Get on early. If there's a habitat stamp or anything else you need to get bought, make sure you get on now. We have staff available to help. Our permit staff have been working in some days around the clock, kind of putting their lives on hold as we launch this new system, making sure that our hunters and anglers and everybody have the support they need, our landowners and whatnot. So hats off to those folks on our permits team for what I would say is just incredible customer service right now. But yeah, get online now. Don't wait till the last minute, because you may have questions, you may need help, and that support staff is there right now to give you that help.
There you go. On Saturday morning when you're out there coming out of the deer woods and you see a gentleman dressed like Duane is now, that's the wrong time to ask questions about something you should have known.
I'd want to echo exactly what both of you just said. Yeah, don't wait. Don't have that frustration fall upon you, at the last minute. Get that addressed, and be ready when the season starts.
All right, here's another question for you, Duane, from Matt. If you shoot a deer on public ground and it expires on private ground, can you legally retrieve your game if you leave your weapon behind without the landowner's permission? We do
not allow that. You have to have permission to enter that property. To retrieve or look for your game. You have to have it. We don't have what South Dakota call it, a right to retrieve law. And so yes, you have to get permission. You cannot access private property unless you have that permission.
And the neat thing, Matt, here, if you can track down the landowner and tell them the situation, there's a really good chance they're going to help you out with that. They don't want that deer to go to waste for the most part, but it is up to their decision.
Yes, it's very, very rare that a landowner won't let you go retrieve it, but you do have to have that permission.
Nick asked, can we hunt BLM ground in Nebraska? Onyx shows it, but I don't remember the Nebraska Atlas showing it. And Bureau of Land Management, that's a federal agency. I don't know if we have a lot of BLM ground here in Nebraska. We've got some Forest Service ground, National Forest Service ground. We've got some Fish and Wildlife Service refuge ground, as well the grasslands up there in Oglala. That'd be National Forest oversees that. BLM ground?
I don't have a great answer to that. I'd have to check. I'm not aware of a lot of BLM ground that we would have here, nothing like the western states for sure. If it's not in the Atlas, I would tell you that you probably can.
Yep. Now I do know, Nick, on X, a lot of states, especially from here west, have education grounds, Bureau of Education. Ours oftentimes show up on that. Shaded, it's BELF. and I can't remember the whole education land trust or something foundation, something along those lines. Nebraska, those areas are not open to public access or public hunting. Those grounds are leased to maximize profits for the education system here in the state of Nebraska. They will pop up on some of those mapping apps, if you will, but they are not land open to hunting. So, good questions. This is all really good stuff here. Again, folks, we've got just a few minutes. We're getting the countdown started now. But if you've got some questions, feel free to type them in now or after, and we'll see if we can't get to those answered before Saturday rolls around. So, guys, good stuff. My goodness, we've covered a lot of ground. I know there's some folks out there that are going to just be excited to get out and do this for the very first time. What would be your one big piece of advice if someone is going out for the very first time Saturday morning to go deer hunting here in the state of Nebraska? Jeff, we'll start with you.
Oh, my biggest piece of advice is always, hunt safe. Have a safe hunt. Safe hunt's a fun hunt. Have fun out there in the field, have a safe hunt, learn, and soak it all in. First time hunter, learn all you can. And but just have a safe hunt, use common sense, always be thinking about, hey, watching the muzzle, finger off the trigger, identifying the target before I touch the trigger, keep the safety on, and that's a requirement no matter where you're at. Doesn't mean if you're in the field hunting, if you're putting a gun in and out of the truck, if you're getting in and out of the blind to the deer stand, you always have to adhere to some basic safety rules. But yeah, have fun.
There you go, Duane.
I wish you would ask me first, because I would have said the exact same thing.
That's why membership has privilege.
There you go. Hunt safe. Yes, a safe hunt is a good hunt, and I just echo that. There's not a deer worth it out there that's that could possibly cause an accident. So yeah, hunt safe. Hands down, that's the number one thing.
And I'm going to reiterate. I'm going to say this because for a first time hunter especially, I think every hunter who's hunted any amount of time that's worth their moxie has learned this. But if you haven't, this is I think sound advice, and that is get out there and slow down, relax. And, a lot of people are just so focused when it comes to deer hunting on the harvest. Get out there, relax, slow life down, and just enjoy being out there. Enjoy the sunrise, the cool breeze, the smell of nature, seeing other critters, just being away from the phone and obligations, and just take it all in. Because at the end of the day, and most hunters will probably learn this by now, no matter if we harvest a deer or not over a span of 30, 40 years, you look back, it's probably not the harvest that resonates so much or keep you driving to go out again the next year, but some of those things that we've just come to love and appreciate. So, notice those things and really just let life slow down a little bit. You're gonna appreciate it if you do.
There you go. It's quite the experience, and remember, it's a 9-day long season. So if things don't come together right away for you Saturday morning before 10 o'clock, not a big deal. I mean, the deer are out there. Sometimes we have to adjust our tactics, and some in-season scouting and intel can be just as important as anything leading up to that big day. But that's a pretty darn exciting time to say the least. And like you guys said, take a breath and enjoy it. It goes by fast. It seems like just a few weeks ago we were sitting down here talking about deer season being just about ready to begin for 2022 season. And here we are in 2023 also.
It's amazing,
already.
but it feels so good. Oh, God, it feels so good. Here we are. We finally made it. It's feeling so good.
Something else I'm going to toss out there. Again, folks, we're brought to you by you guys, the hunters and recreational shooters here in the state of Nebraska that make the funding possible for hunter education, our wildlife management, and a whole bunch more. If you want some more information on how to, you can check out our Hunt Nebraska podcast, How to Deer, that walk through a lot of different components and pieces of knowledge and skills you might want to take a peek at. Or you can join us on our weekly podcast, Hunt Nebraska, where we talk things deer as well as just about anything hunting or shooting related. If you got some more questions, we don't get to them before the close of the live feed here, make sure you still type them in there. And our Facebook folks, Michael and Hunter, I'm sure will get you the right answers before the end of the day. So appreciate you being there. Appreciate you guys coming in today and giving of your time and expertise. How many years of deer hunting do we have between the two of you?
Oh boy.
Deer hunting?
Let's see.
Oh, see, here comes the lie. Here comes the lie.
You're at 51 and I'm probably 38, years, so, 80,
80 plus.
yeah, 38, 51, 89, 89 years, about 90 years.
There you
almost.
go. Almost, we're
How
getting
many
close to
are
the
yours?
century.
How
Getting
many
close
are
to the
yours?
century. Oh, a couple.
Couple, so 92.
To the century. But thanks for being there, folks, and check us out on Hunt Nebraska anytime.